Hi Barbara, welcome to your private reading. So this is a reading from Margaret. So I am under the impression that you've not had a reading like this before. So just to give you a little understanding about what it is that I do. I'm an astrologer. I've practiced astrology for a very long time. I started studying it when I was a child. I have been doing it professionally. I've been doing professional readings since 2018. And I'm also a tarot reader. Again, started that whenever I was technically a child, so 18. So I was legally an adult, but still a child. So I started learning tarot then. I've been practicing ever since. And again, like 2018 being the year I began astrology professionally, I also began doing tarot professionally. So I use both. Whenever I'm looking at somebody's chart and I'm doing a reading in a specific area, I'm going to be using tarot cards, oracle cards, and your natal birth chart. So your natal birth chart, your natal birth chart is based on the time you were born, the day you were born, the time of day you were born, the location you were born, and what was basically going on in the heavens at that time. And then I'm going to be mentioning transits to your chart. So that's how the outer planets now, where they are and how that is forming aspects to your natal chart and how that can trigger events in your life, how that can trigger important themes in your life and probabilities. Again, astrology is not meant to be used as an exact tool to pinpoint every little detail of your life, but it can certainly give you themes, it can give you ideas, and it can also help you understand yourself a little bit better and maybe understand where you're at life a little bit better. So I'm going to be using transits. I'm also going to refer to the progress chart. That is how your natal chart is progressed. So while you do have this blueprint with your natal chart of the heavens when you were born, your chart also progresses, and this shows your soul's progression, where you're at emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. And then obviously I'm also going to be referring to the cards. So what I have here is that you were born on Monday, the 30th of November 1992 in Stamford, Connecticut at 8:23 p.m. Just going to do a double check of that while I start the reading based on Margaret's note. Because I always double check before the reading, but then I get into the reading and I sort of want to check again. I get a little bit scared in case there's an off detail, because that matters quite a bit. So I always overthink this, but yes, 30th of November 1992, 2023, Stamford, Connecticut. Okay. So firstly, I'm going to run over the notes that I made based on your birth chart. So at the time you were born, you are a Leo rising. And just before I continue, I'm under the impression that the majority of this reading is going to focus on love. That seems to be the main focus. So I'm going to be mentioning your chart mainly in the context of relationships and how relationships play out in your life. So you're a Leo rising, which means that the type of partners you attract are Aquarian in nature, or the type of relationships you have are Aquarian in nature. So sometimes, I was actually talking to someone earlier about this, with Leo risings, they tend to pick or end up with people who are a little bit of an unusual choice. There's usually something about them where people may be surprised that you're attracted to this person, not because they're unattractive, but a lot of Leo risings that I know, they tend to be quite glamorous. They tend to be, you can't not notice a Leo rising when they walk into the room. It's usually the hair. The hair is usually really beautiful, really well styled, an amazing color, or it's very voluminous. It's the lion's mane basically. So there's usually something distinctive about the hair, and Leo risings tend to command a lot of attention. Because Leo is ruled by the sun shines, we all orbit around the sun. So Leo risings, out of all the ascendant signs, tend to bring in the most attention. Now your ascendant is different to your sun sign, which you would also refer to as your star sign, yours being Sagittarius. But your Leo rising is how other people see you. It's your personality. Usually someone who's outgoing, extroverted, optimistic, bubbly, energetic. And again, usually there is a glamorous feel. It's the lion, so the mane is important, the hair is important. There usually is something that sets you apart from others because of your hair, believe it or not. Whether that's that it's very luxurious, whether that is that it's very shiny, whether that is that it is a very bright colour. I actually know one Leo rising, for example, who has naturally platinum blonde hair. So there's usually something about the hair that makes Leo rising stand out. They're usually the easiest to spot from an astrologer perspective because of the hair. But while that is you, and the Leo rising is usually quite, as I say, outgoing, sunny, and quite attention grabbing, the partner that a Leo rising chooses is an Aquarius type of person. That can be that they're actually an Aquarius, but they're usually a little unconventional, sometimes nerdy. We see a lot of Leo rising females going for the guys at Silicon Valley. So if you look at Miranda Kerr, she's a good example of a Leo rising who married someone from Silicon Valley, someone who people were kind of confused about a little bit. One, because there's a bit of an age gap. Two, because she's a Victoria's Secret model and he's the more nerdy type. It's that kind of dynamic that usually plays out. Those are the type of partners that Leo risings tend to choose. There's something different about them. They might be really good at tech. They might work in IT. They might work in software. Or they can be someone who's a little bit unconventional, of a thinker, someone who's very independent, really thinks for themselves, maybe more interested in conspiracy theories, for example, someone who is a little bit of an unusual choice. Or it could be someone who's quite bohemian, lives off the grid, is a bit more futuristic. There's something nonconformist about them, something a little bit rebellious about them. Or the partner that you choose or end up with may be someone who is a rebellion against your family's norms or traditions. You know, someone who comes from a very different background to you, has a very different way of life than your family or the way that you were raised, for example. Now, you also have a couple of planets in the 7th house. So your moon is there and your Saturn is there. Now, Saturn in the 7th house tends to coincide with delayed marriage. So there are very few people who marry under the age of 30 with Saturn in the 7th house. And when they do, it is usually in vain. It usually ends in divorce. This is an aspect in a birth chart that means that you meet the right person later in most cases, or if you meet the right person in your 20s, you marry them in your 30s because it's after your Saturn return. You've just gone through your Saturn return. Your Saturn return would have ended in March 2023. It's a coming of age cycle. It's very important. So for you, it would have began in 2020 and it would have ended in 2023. It's usually when you mature. So I don't know what was going on for you relationship wise at that time. If you met anybody, if you went into a relationship, if you healed from a relationship, if you went through a breakup, I'm not sure what was going on for you, but your Saturn return was quite connected to the theme of relationships. But usually it's after your Saturn return or during your Saturn return that you either meet the right person or you marry the person that you're with. So that's usually in your 30s, or in some cases later. Saturn does not deny, but it certainly delays. So people that have Saturn in the 7th house can sometimes go long periods without dating anybody. But because Saturn is a traditional ruler of your 7th house, it can actually be that you meet the right person, but you have to navigate long distance, or you have to navigate some sort of obstacles, because Saturn likes to test your relationships to see if they're solid. So if you're not dating someone who is Saturnian, if you're not dating someone who's mature, who's committed, who's serious, the relationship is usually a karmic one, whereby there's a painful lesson at the end. When you have Saturn in the 7th house, a lot of the time it means that the person that you're meant to be with is Saturn-like. So that can be that they're a good bit older than you, or it can actually be that they're a good bit younger than you. So an age-appropriate age difference usually shows up with Saturn being in the 7th house. So that can be that they are maybe 10 years older than you. It can be that they've gone through a divorce when they've met you. It can be that they are quite mature, possibly in their approach to life. The person for you will probably regard as the most mature of anyone you've dated. They can be bony. I know that sounds like a weird thing to say, but they can be bony. A good example of this, if you're into pop culture, is Kourtney Kardashian. She has Saturn in the 7th house, and she did not get together with her husband until she was in her 40s, I believe. She also has the North Node there, and the North Node delays it that little bit more, so that's why hers was much later. But Saturn in the 7th house, her husband is very Saturn looking. He's very bony. Saturn can actually also be associated with tattoos, believe it or not. So there can be tattoos involved, because tattoos are a very permanent commitment on your skin. But it doesn't have to be tattoos. That's not really in traditional astrology. I've just noticed it comes up quite a bit. But it can be someone who, yes, is a bit older. You also have the moon there as well, which can mean that the person that you're meant to be with is a very compatible fit for you emotionally and your emotional needs. I would wonder with your chart if the best person for you is someone that you start off with as friends first, or you'd be more comfortable with that kind of arrangement. And maybe you have a friend for a very long time and you get together later in the relationship. But friendship is first and foremost the most important thing to you in relationships. But if you're still single, I just want you to know that although Saturn in the 7th house can dictate meeting someone later, it usually does give a promise that the person for you is very serious, very committed, and very steady. With Saturn being there, so it can be that you may meet somebody later, but they are more steady and you're happier in the relationship than you would have been if you had married someone in your 20s, for example. That's just something to pay attention to in terms of your relationships. Now, Aquarius is also ruled by Uranus, and you have Uranus in the 6th house conjunct Neptune and Venus. So because Uranus is in the 6th house and Uranus is in Capricorn, it does kind of give this sense as well that you may be best choosing someone a bit more mature. But also it's giving the sense that you might meet somebody if you're still single, because I'm actually not sure if you are or not. I wasn't given that information, but you may meet partners or potential partners through your day-to-day errands, your day-to-day routines. So going to the gym is a popular one for this particular placement. The dentists, the doctors, it can be someone who works in those fields. It can be meeting someone at the vets. It can be meeting someone through animals. All kinds of things, believe it or not. But it's usually it shows up in the day-to-day mundane with the 6th house. The humdrum activities that you're experiencing is often the way that you meet a partner or potential partners. And because it's Uranus, it's quite unexpected too when you do meet somebody. But I feel because you have Uranus and Venus quite close together and you have a 7th house Aquarius, I feel like the person for you is going to need to be someone who isn't afraid to break the rules and someone who isn't actually stuck on convention. That's what your soul suggests based on your birth chart. Someone who is a little bit more free thinking, someone who is a little bit more open to life, someone who's a bit adventurous, but someone who isn't really wildly concerned with what other people think. You know, we're looking at the type of person who could be regarded as quirky, original, free thinker, that kind of thing, is the person that I would kind of see in your chart. Someone who is just a little bit, maybe also quite inventive is something I would see here as well. Someone who's quite inventive, someone who's very unique. Because you have Venus conjunct Neptune, there is sometimes, and I don't know if you've experienced this, but people who have Venus conjunct Neptune at some point in their life usually date a person, and it's usually when they're younger, but they usually date a person who has addiction issues, alcohol issues, someone who is maybe a little bit of an escapist, but it tends to also bring about this energy of rose-tinted glasses. So I don't know if you've experienced that, but that can be a way that plays out in your chart at some points, to be mindful of putting a rosy spin on people who maybe have serious addiction issues or something like that, because it can come up quite a bit with Venus Neptune in a birth chart. Any kind of Venus Neptune conversation can be where you idealize love, you've rose tinted glasses, and then you sort of can imagine someone into being what you think they are, but they're not actually that way. You know, you're not necessarily always looking at them very clearly. I feel in the 6th house that can be people that you get involved with through work or something like that, or through the gym. You can maybe, and I mean, again, I could be wrong about this because it plays out differently depending on, it usually plays out at least once. It's like a natal promise, but it can be over idealizing someone or projecting a fantasy onto a person that isn't actually there. And again, because it's Capricorn 6th house, that could be through work, that could be the gym, but there can be an element of deceit about it because either you're deceiving yourself or they're a deceitful person. So you may have encountered that in the past, and that can sometimes bring about trust issues. The person for you is someone who is very noble with Saturn. I feel like there's someone who takes the relationship very seriously. And they may be someone who is a Capricorn, an Aquarius, Sun, Moon, or Rising. So you need to look up their birth chart for that. And if you're not interested in that type of thing, it may very well just be their sun sign. So that can be January, February times, even late December. So yeah, I have quite a few notes here that I want to mention. And this is where I'm going to start going into some technical terms. So I'm going to try and keep this kind of light because I don't think you have looked too much into astrology. So I'll try and make this I'll try not to be too detailed because I like to explain things. It's almost like when you're doing an exam and they say to show you're working out. I like to explain things so that sometimes people can go off and Google something for themselves, or they can look it up for themselves, pointers. But if it's too complicated, I know that it won't sink in. So I'm going to try and make it a little bit more, I'm going to mellow down the terminology a little bit because I might already have lost you. I don't know. So I mentioned the progress chart, and the progress chart shows where you're at soul-wise, and as a result, the type of things that come your way. And I really feel this year that you are ready for a relationship. And there's a few things in your solar your solar progressions. Having trouble talking. Your solar progressions that really indicate that to me. So based on what your progress chart is saying, I feel like emotionally speaking, you're more ready than you've ever been to connect with a partner. I think you're more ready to connect with someone on a deeper level. You have the moon in Aquarius, which you probably don't believe this, but the moon in Aquarius is actually known as the astrologer's moon in astrology. I have it myself. You would find that if you did look into astrology, you might actually take to it like a duck to water. So that's just something that if you do end up interested in it, just know that you have the astrologer's moon. So bear that in mind. But your chart in general, the way that it has progressed this year, and I'm speaking of this year specifically, but your progressed descendant, which is partnership, is conjunct your moon in the house of partnership. Your progressed Mars is opposite your natal Venus, and your progressed Venus is conjunct your progressed descendant and your moon. So we have an absolute alert going on in your chart that is saying you're ready for a relationship. You're ready for commitment. You're ready to emotionally invest in a partner. You're ready to be in love. You're ready to go deeper with somebody. So if you're in a relationship, to me, that would suggest you're ready to go deeper with a partner. If you're looking for a relationship, I think it would be easier to find based on your chart. I feel as though you would find yourself connecting to people who are more emotionally compatible with you. And as I said before, the moon in Aquarius, especially because it's in the 7th house, it does indicate that you would be better picking someone where you feel fundamentally that they are a friend first. So that can be that you're friends for a while before you get together, or it can be that you would look at your partner and say, but are they my friend deep down? I think friendship is the biggest foundation builder for you. being a moon in Aquarius, it may actually be, based on other transits, that you do have a friendship, if you're single, that does actually turn to a relationship this year. That is also possible. But it may be that you meet somebody through your friends, or it may be that you meet someone through a networking event where you're kind of thrown together with new people. That can be certainly some way that you meet somebody this year, but your chart is really, really screaming that you're ready for a relationship. And if that relationship really, really makes you happy, and you can see a future, you have an aligned future with that person, it's very important to be true to your heart. Even if your family doesn't necessarily understand why you've chosen that person, or there is something not so conventional about that person. If there's something about it that is a little bit different or unexpected, I do think it's important to be true to yourself with what it is that you truly want from a partner and what would make you happy. And I think a lot of this year is going to be about realizing what that is, what that looks like, maybe through a person that you didn't expect to fall in love with, maybe through a lifestyle that you didn't expect to be living, but there is something that's a little bit different when it comes to who you're meant to be with. There's something a little bit unusual. And the more that you embrace that, the happier you'll probably be. And that is dependent, of course, if your futures align. It's kind of like how some couples don't necessarily make sense on a societal level. You know, maybe they've very different backgrounds, maybe they've very different political preferences, to give an example. But their futures align. They both want the same things. They both want to live the same way. Their futures are so aligned that the relationship works easy peasy. Those kind of things are what matter. How it looks to other people doesn't really matter so much. And you're going to be facing a lot of relationship shadows in the next 20 years. Because in astrology, one of the outer planets, Pluto, and I can probably hear you saying if you're not really that into astrology, but Pluto's not a planet. It is, in astrology, Pluto's very important, and it is always linked to huge world-changing events. Anytime there's an event, Pluto shows up with an exact aspect to another outer planet. So for example, COVID hit 2020, the great Saturn-Pluto conjunction, which had not happened since World War II. 9/11 was the Saturn-Pluto opposition to the day. They were in the signs of Gemini and Sagittarius, which rule air travel, foreign affairs, airplanes. And Pluto is a very dark, heavy planet, so it usually reveals something. So it's actually changing signs this year. It changed into Aquarius last year for a brief 3-month period. It's moving in to Aquarius next week. It's going to be there until September to November, and then it's going to, in that period, it's going to have retrograded back into Capricorn. But from November onward, we have 20 years of Pluto going through Aquarius. For all of us, collectively, that means many different things. AI is associated with Aquarius, technology, huge technological advancements, huge scientific advancements. People are going to live longer, birth rates are going to decline because Aquarius is opposite Leo. So there's many ways that this plays out in terms of the world. But for you personally, this means that Pluto is actually entering your 7th house of relationships. So when Pluto transits the 7th house of relationships, it's a long transit. For you, the first thing it's going to do is it's going to connect with your descendant, which is your partnerships, your relationships, which means that it is going to change your relationship life, absolutely, as in no going back. Huge change. Years later, it's going to connect with your Saturn, and then years after that, it's going to connect with your moon. So most of this cycle, Pluto's kind of in the background, changing on a psychological level how you feel about relationships. You're probably doing some shadow work, some soul searching, facing some fears within relationships when it comes to power, when it comes to control, when it comes to intimacy. And Pluto is going to transform that area of life, absolutely. So if you were sitting talking to me now as a single girl, I would say within a couple of years, your relationship life will be so different you actually can't believe it. So, and somewhat going on, from now, with so much of your progressions indicating relationship love, I would say your likelihood of meeting someone this year is quite high if you're single, because you're certainly ready for it. But in next year, I would see your relationship life changing absolutely. So whether that is that the type of person you want to be with completely changes, whether you take up with someone that changes your life, whether you enter a relationship that turns your world upside down, or the type of person that you're going for turns your world upside down, it's going to change, and it's going to change in a way that's absolute. So I'll give you an example of this in pop culture, because I like using celebrity examples. It's one of the best ways to learn more about transits. When Meghan Markle met Prince Harry, she had Pluto transiting her descendant, and it's a long-term transit. When they both left the royal family, which was huge change, it was still transiting her descendant. So that changed her world completely, if you can see that as an example. She was married to a prince. She actually got married in 2011 to her first marriage took place not long after Pluto entered her 7th house. So she actually was married and divorced twice. No, sorry, married and divorced and then married a prince in her relationship life. While Pluto was going through her 7th house of relationships. So that's just a good example of how Pluto can come around and bring a life-changing relationship. Sometimes a person who has a lot of power or who comes from a lot of power would be the main thing, or someone that you're deeply, deeply attracted to, like a deep soul connection and a deep intimate connection. So Lisa Bonet, Jason Momoa, that whole relationship played out after Pluto entered her 7th house. And I also just want to clarify that this does not mean that you necessarily have to get married to someone and divorced in that time. I'm using celebrity examples that did divorce, but they divorced when Pluto, it depends on the overall chart. For example, Lisa Bonet divorced when Pluto was smack bang on her descendant. That happens a lot, but I have seen people who have had Pluto transit their descendant and it actually just be a significant change with their partner, i.e. Meghan Markle and Harry leaving the royal family. And that made them more famous, do you know what I mean? And then they were hanging out with Oprah and stuff like that. So it's just an example of how it tends to bring about themes in a person's life. So this can be that you attract a very powerful partner. This can be that your partner gets more power in their career. This can be that you fall in love with someone who lives in a different country and all of a sudden you've moved to that country and your life is completely different. But it tends to bring absolute change. Now, it will bring up fears of intimacy and love if you have them. It will bring up fears of relationships if you have them. It will bring up secrets if you have them in terms of relationships, intimate relationships. Some of the partners that you can attract can also be, just as a warning sign, jealous, possessive, obsessive. That is the lower vibrational energy. The higher vibrational energy is that they can be powerful, transformative, and very aware of their shadow, which makes them a safer person to be around because they've done the work. So that obviously depends where you're at, emotionally speaking, and your own shadow work. I would say, if I may, that Pluto going through the 7th house is likely to bring about some serious shadow work when it comes to relationships. You will learn a lot about yourself through relationships. There are a few transits supporting the idea of you growing and developing relationships this year, but I do feel your progress chart is the main thing that's speaking to me as you are ready for love, is the way that I see this. I think you're very ready emotionally to be with somebody who is on your level, someone who's a compatible fit. I mean, I don't know if you have met somebody or not, or you're in a relationship, but I feel as though what could happen is that you could absolutely go deeper with somebody. I'd actually kind of be interested to know where you are at in terms of your relationship status, just because your chart's really highlighting it to me. But again, I don't know if you're single or in a relationship or not. I just know that your chart is really pointing you in the direction of being more true to yourself. And I don't know if that's because you haven't been true to yourself with the type of partner that you want or the type of relationship you'd like. I don't know. I just know that the energies are pointing towards you being more true to yourself. And I just get this sense that maybe the person for you is... it may surprise people around you, is what I'm thinking. I also know that this is not related to love, but April, there is an eclipse in your midheaven. The midheaven is your public image, your social status, your career, and it's a solar eclipse. I do wonder if you may be inspired to, in April, make a significant change, or an opportunity may come up career-wise in April. It doesn't have to be April, but it certainly feels like it may be. March, April, May, a significant career opportunity might arise that could be very fated for you and may give you more independence, may give you more drive on a personal level. Like, it's very self-motivated is what I'm seeing with this. But I do see a change in your career, likely linked to April. So there may be rumblings of what this is in April, or there may be opportunities come up in April, but there does seem to be fated changes when it comes to your career. So I'm going to draw you some cards now, and we're going to focus on love still. So what does Barbara need to know when it comes to love? I'm also kind of wondering, I'm going to pull you a couple of cards here. Your commitment is being tested. I'm also kind of wondering if you would be, or if you've dated an Italian person. And I'll tell you why in a second. Okay, so we have first quarter moon and full moon in Leo. Your commitment is tested. Don't let pride get in your way. I'll do one more. Look at the bigger picture. Full moon in Sagittarius. Okay. So, I'm seeing that you might, if you're going to meet somebody this year, or, you know, if you're already in a relationship, I am seeing Leo and I'm seeing Sagittarius as highlighted. But I feel as though when it comes to relationships, a big theme for you this year is about seeing the bigger picture in your relationships. Where you cut yourself off from somebody, where you block yourself off from love or connection or commitment. Sometimes having an Aquarius descendant can make for anxious avoidant or dismissive avoidant. There can be an element of avoidance in relationships, so that might be something that you consider looking into this year. But the reason that I said Italian for you, and I'm sort of looking at it with this full moon in Sagittarius, is because I went a completely last minute trip on Thursday evening to an Italian restaurant, and I had one point walked past the window and said to my cousin, that place looks really cute. And then she messaged me on the Thursday at about 4 o'clock and said, hey, do you want to go to this Italian restaurant in the next couple of hours? And I was like, yeah. So I went, and I don't really drink, but it was her birthday, or it was just after her birthday, and she suggested getting wine, and we asked them to pick a wine. And the wine, I'm not a wine expert, maybe you are, but the wine was Barbara. Barbara wine. And I've been trying everywhere to find it online since, because it was actually the most delicious wine I've ever had in my life. It was a red wine. It was just beautiful. And I thought, this is the nicest wine ever. But it was called Barbara. And I'm just sort of thinking, I didn't know at that point, or I didn't remember at that point, the name of the person I was reading for that Margaret had booked for. because I read for Margaret before, I'd remember her name, but I didn't remember that your name was Barbara. And I kind of wonder, I was in an Italian restaurant, I just wonder if Italy or Italian people are going to feature for you this year. Like maybe you take a trip to Italy, maybe you meet an Italian. I don't know, but I'm kind of getting that might be serendipitous in some way. Or maybe like a song about red wine or something like that. I don't know. But I'm kind of getting the sense that it needed to come up for a reason, you know. So looking at the bigger picture, not letting pride get in the way in terms of relationships. And I also think looking into your own levels of commitment to somebody else. And how maybe you hold back a little bit so that you don't get hurt when it comes to commitment. There's a full moon in Leo coming up next week, actually. It may well be significant for you. So I'm going to put down a spread of cards. And let's see what comes up. So, love a reading for Barbara. Just going to give them a bit of a shuffle. If anything flips out, I will let you know what it is and show it to you. But love messages, love reading for Barbara. Love reading, love messages for Barbara. Oh, we got a card on the floor. So we had the Page of Swords. So I don't know if you're maybe online dating with this particular card, or maybe somebody is going to message you quite soon. This card tends to represent online communication. It can also represent a little spy. So there may actually be someone who is keeping a little bit of a close eye on you at the moment, relationship-wise. And I do wonder if they perceive you to be someone with your head in a book or book smart. Or maybe just someone who's very easy to talk to. But it can sometimes represent a little spy on social media. But it came out for a reason, so I just think there might be someone you hear from pretty shortly. So, love messages for Barbara. So I just split the deck into 3 and go with the biggest pile. That's how I read. And we have the 10 of Pentacles underneath. So your opening card is the Lovers. So I wonder, are you already in a relationship then? Because this is your opening card. The Lovers in this deck is really beautiful. But what you will notice about in this deck at least is that they are different races. They come from different walks of life. They probably had different life experiences, but they love each other, and that just seems to be a resounding message for you. There's something about your partner being different to you somehow in a way that is obvious to the eye. You know? Crossed by the Star. And we have the 2 of Pentacles. We have the 3 of Wands. We have the 10 of Swords. We have the Queen of Pentacles. We've got the Tower. We've got the 9 of Wands, the Justice card, and the King of Wands. Okay. Right, I think there's someone who might want to set you up with somebody if you're single. Let me just move this so you can see these. There's a person in your future here, so take this if it applies, because again, I don't know if you're in a relationship or not. There's somebody showing up in your future. There's actually, your 2 future cards are these 2. One has this woman in it, this Queen of Pentacles, and the other has this man in it, the King of Wands. Now, I'm going to take gender out of the equation. It doesn't have to be gender specific. But I do wonder if there is somebody who might have someone in mind for you if you're single, or someone who's going to help out when it comes to your relationships. The person that I see in your future with the King of Wands is somebody who is quite motivated by whatever they do. They don't strike me as someone who just plods along. They're someone with ambitions. They're someone who has a passion for something that they do, and they put a lot of time and a lot of effort into it, because they don't tend to invest too much in things that don't spark them up, things that don't bring them alive, so to speak. They may well be a fire sign, so an Aries, a Leo, or a Sagittarius. But I wonder, do you, or if this is a relationship you're in, did you meet this person through a friend? Maybe someone who's a Capricorn, Capricorn, Virgo, Taurus. But I am seeing a person here. I'm also really getting this sense in my chest that you're a bit scared, truthfully. The Tower is the energy that you're bringing to the reading, and that can be where you feel like your foundations aren't stable for some reason. That could be that you don't think you're where you want to be for a relationship. Like, you don't feel maybe like you have the things that you need to have one. I'm going to tell you from an astrological perspective, I believe that you do have what you need for a relationship right now. I'm actually just going to run really quickly and grab my charger, because I've just noticed the low battery sign go on, which has taken me by surprise. So I'm only moving over here. Just don't want this cutting off. Sorry to be chaotic, but I didn't want this to... There we go. I didn't want this to suddenly cut off mid-reading. I feel like you're a little bit scared of what foundations are there, or what foundations could be there. Maybe you don't trust people very much, but I'm getting the sense that you are a little bit afraid. The Ten of Swords is crowning the reading, and that's usually when things have gotten as bad as they can get. That can be periods of depression, that can be periods of great loss in a relationship. It can even be death in relationships. So I don't know if you've experienced that, but I feel like there are some very serious fears deep down from relationships. I don't know if you've encountered divorce, or you've encountered huge loss basically in relationships, and this is maybe clouding because the star is what's crossing you, and sometimes that can be a lack of hope or a lack of belief. But having seen your chart, I really do believe that you are actually where you need to be internally for a relationship, and maybe not to worry so much about the external. So I don't know if you're thinking, oh, my career's not good enough to be in a relationship, or I haven't done this to be in it. I'm kind of getting the sense it's like maybe more material things. But I'm going to put the clarifiers down. Let's go. So, Barbara, love messages. Also, the King of Wands character looks very like the person in the Lovers card. So, I feel like you are definitely encountering someone who I just feel is... Ooh, the Empress popped out. Someone who absolutely thinks that you are their physical ideal as well. That can sometimes show up for people who are very attractive, so maybe you've no trouble attracting someone with the Empress card. I mean, Leo risings tend to be, they do tend to be attention grabbers. So let's have a little look and see what comes up for you. So we have the Empress came up again. That's really weird. Crossed by the Page of Pentacles. Death card in the past. The 8 of Wands. The Knight of Wands. The Page of Wands. The 3 of Pentacles. The High Priestess. The 4 of Pentacles. And the 7 of Swords. Okay. Interesting. With the 10 of Cups underneath. So I suspect, with the Empress being here and the Page of Pentacles crossing it, I think you might sell yourself short. I'm almost thinking like you're kind of, I could be wrong. I'm kind of wondering if you think that because of some circumstantial factors that you're not ready for or worthy of the kind of relationship you want, but in actuality you have everything you need and others would also perceive you to have more than enough for a relationship of your choosing. Because the Empress is usually someone who's very attractive, someone who attracts a lot of attention, usually very physically beautiful, usually has the type of energy that people gravitate towards, but it's crossed by the Page of Pentacles, which makes me think you might sell yourself short. And if you had a Gucci bag, its typical price is very expensive, but if you take it to your garage sale, people aren't going to pay that for it. It's not going to go for its original value. It's sort of saying, remember your actual worth and not being marked down. Do you know what I mean? So with the 2 of Pentacles and the Death card in the past, I think sometimes there could be, could be wrong, but I wonder, did you struggle to end things when you knew they weren't right? That can be all kinds of relationships or jobs or things like that, but maybe struggling to end things whenever their time had expired. You maybe lost a little bit of trust in that. I do feel though that you still have to be mindful of choosing people who are in some way not necessarily. What I would say is just make sure that you do pay attention to red flags. You do pay attention to warning signals. You do pay attention to the obvious. Because I kind of wonder if there has been a betrayal in the past by a fire sign where maybe I'll just put the final cards down and then I'll go into it, but I'm going to clarify these. So clarify love messages for Barbara, please. So we have the 5 of Swords, the 4 of Wands, 5 of Wands, the Emperor, the Strength card, 7 of Wands, 10 of Cups, 9 of Pentacles, 5 of Pentacles, and the Knight of Swords. Interesting. I'm going to clarify this King of Wands person. King of Wands person. Wheel of Fortune, okay. One more. King of Wands person. King of Wands. King of Pentacles. Goodness me. Okay. And what's the 7 of Swords then? Ace of Swords. 10 of Pentacles. Okay. Do you know what? I'm seeing this really strange thing whereby you have somebody here. So I don't know if this is someone that you're currently dating or this is someone that's coming in, but I'm seeing a person and I'm seeing them quite clearly. This person is going to be, I think, quite honest about their past. I wonder, did this person have things in the past that they maybe weren't proud of, things that they maybe regret, things that they maybe did that weren't in their highest integrity, that maybe were not so honourable? I think this person might be honest about those things. But I think this person has been what do you call it? What is that? What is that called when someone matures slowly? A late bloomer. So this may well be, if you do get into astrology, this may be someone who has Saturn in the first house. Or is a Capricorn, Aquarius rising. They might be someone who spent their 20s acting, they might not have had everything together by 30, 35, maybe. Don't know, just random ages. I don't think anybody really has it together by those ages. I think we like to pretend we do, and a lot of people go to great lengths to make it look like they do. But this is someone who maybe more obviously or openly would admit. This could have been someone who was in a very unhappy marriage, like maybe they married young and they were unfaithful, for example. Or maybe this is someone who, I just think there's something about them that there's something they used to do that they weren't proud of. And I think they're honest about it though. I kind of clarified the cards to get the sense of what it is. I think they're honest about this. They might be someone who already has a family. They might already have kids. It's just a possibility. They might have a family or have had a family before. Or they might just be open about where they come from. Maybe they're not very proud of where they come from. But this is a very destined connection in your life. The Wheel of Fortune usually represents somebody who is you're destined to meet. I think with the King of Pentacles, this is someone who is actually quite stable now. So they might be quite financially stable. They might be quite career oriented. I really feel they're very career oriented, very driven. But I do feel like they in the past have perhaps been avoidant, or they did things that weren't in their highest integrity. I also think that you have the potential to sabotage this relationship because of fear. So again, I don't know if this is somebody that you're currently with or you will meet in the future, but you may have it within you to be the avoidant in the relationship, and you may run, or you may actually find that two people you really like come along at once as well. And that might be a possibility as well. I'm reading this in the context of this year, to be truthful. But I am seeing somebody who's quite fated. When the Seven of Swords is usually a deception card, there's deceit, there's trickery. When I clarified it, I got the Ace of Swords, which is honesty and victory. So I think this person's very honest about, there's something from their past they're not very proud of, I don't think. Wonder what it was. The Magician. Maybe they were quite manipulative. If you're meeting this person while Pluto's in your 7th house, as it will be from next week, I would say that this person has great powers of manipulation. Doesn't mean that they use it for worse, but I think it's someone who's very clever and can certainly make things happen. They could be quite powerful in what they do. Yeah, I think they are. The Magician and the Sun. I think this person has created something for themselves that maybe would surprise people that knew them when they were younger, I think. Yeah, judgment. Oh my gosh. I wonder, did this person actually... It sounds so... I'm going to clarify this before I say it. Hang on. Judgment. Clarify judgment. The Hierophant. This person might have had a bit of a spiritual awakening in life. I wouldn't be surprised if this person is now maybe quite spiritual or maybe religious, or they have very set principles and belief systems. This person maybe grew up in a very religious household and then rejected it later though. But I'm sort of getting the energy of only God can judge me. So someone who might say things like that, they might be kind of religious or kind of spiritual. Maybe in a bit more of a new age way though. I think this person believes in manifestation and things like that. Mindset is key. This person has transformed their life around, I think, from who they used to be. Anything about this relationship worth knowing? What should we know about this relationship? I feel that this may be somebody who can bring out the worst or the best in you, and I don't think there is much in between. I think you have a very destined relationship ahead of you, and I think this is one whereby you can become the best version of yourself, or you can unravel into old fears and patterns. I will say, and I don't mean this to sound spooky, but this person is very manipulative, and that doesn't have to be in a bad way necessarily, but this person's I think they're very powerful. I think they pull the strings in whatever it is that they do, and I think they're very persuasive, and I would advise you to stand your own with this person. But also don't be afraid to face your shadow, because you may perceive this person at times as something, you may perceive them as your fear. So you may have a fear of being tied down, for example. You may see them as controlling when they're actually not being. And I'm not saying that if someone's controlling to put up with that whatsoever, but it's good to check in with your perception of a relationship. Because I think deep down you'll know if someone is being controlling. You know, you can trust your intuition. You will know if they're being controlling. You will also know if you're maybe reacting out of fear instead. So just, keep checking in with yourself, listen to your body. The Seven of Wands is coming up in your immediate as asking you to focus on meditation. And also to focus on little ways of standing up for yourself, because I get this feeling that maybe there's been somebody who... I don't know if you were raised with a lot of competition or... No, I'm not sure what I'm getting with that. But I do see competition in your past and feeling like it's a struggle. So I am seeing a person here. They're quite a destined person, but I do feel like this person has the opportunity to bring out the best and the worst of you. Do keep checking in with yourself, as I say. I do think this is a very destined relationship. So we just got the Two of Cups, which is the soulmate card, but I think it is karmic. And karmic relationships, they're common for Leo risings because you have a 7th house ruled by Saturn. That tends to indicate karmic relationships. But karmic relationships aren't necessarily bad. You just have to learn from them. And I also kind of get the impression that this is the type of relationship that is destined to happen. but the way that it goes depends on you and that other person and how willing you are to look at your own shadows. I think you both have ran away from something significant in your lives at some point. I know that sounds vague, but I feel as though this person may trigger the want in you to run from a connection. And you might trigger the feeling in them of shame in that they want to be better than who they were before. Maybe you remind them of someone they hurt before, or maybe they just really want to get it right for you, and it reminds them of a time that they weren't getting it right. You trigger each other's shadow, basically. But that can be a beautiful healing thing too, where you learn and grow together and heal together. I want to say, I think there might be a Leo somewhere in your past, a Leo sun, Leo rising, Leo moon, who might have hurt you very badly. And I feel like they were the more non-committal runner type. But I think that energy, just from what I'm getting from this, might exist within you too. Whereby you may think, oh, I want a relationship, but deep down, you may be feeling, but I've been so badly hurt, I don't think I could trust another person. So it's good to do shadow work. It's good to look inward and see how it is that you're truly feeling. But I do think there's a very significant relationship in your future, I would say, this year. And I feel like it might be through somebody else. Like, I think someone might say, oh, I've met this person. Could be a friend that you meet this person through. Someone who says, oh, hey, I've met this person, I actually think they're really interesting, you should come along to this event, if they're running an event or something like that. But like this person's sort of they're part of a pack or something. A pack of like-minded people. They might actually ride a motorcycle too. They might actually ride a motorcycle. But remember to trust your intuition with people. Know when it's right, know when it's wrong. Because you always know. Pay attention to any red flags that you get. But also pay attention. I know this sounds kind of harsh, but do pay attention to red flags in yourself when they come up too, because they can be the greatest pointers for growth. You know, just noticing if maybe your actions are helping you or not in relationships, or your thought patterns are helping you or not in relationships. So I'm just going to draw a couple more cards for your love life in 2024. Oopsies, there's one. Love messages for Barbara in 2024. Cute. So we have the 6th chakra. That's to do with your intuition. We have the door to value. We have the 1st chakra. That is where you feel grounded. It's Archangel Michael. And then we have the angel of love, which is really promising. And then I'm going to pull some tea leaves. Oopsies. Pull these ones. There goes one. Love messages for Barbara, please. Take those two. I'm going to take the green. So we have the caterpillar, we have career, we have the pig, we have the crib, we have January, and we have turkey. Okay. I think I might pull some more. But the one thing that I want to say is that it is highlighting to me here that there may be career changes coming up for you this year too. The caterpillar in the career. We also have January as significant, and we're in January now. So, love messages, please, for Barbara. Forest. The Ram. Ooh, jeepers. A bunch of these fell on the floor. The Ring. I noticed that one flipped out, so I'm going to take it. And one more. Well, actually, no, one more. I'll give another month. I want to give another card. That's April. And we've got the Moon. I'm actually just going to do one more because they flipped that way. So one more. Go. The Well. Okay. So, what I'm seeing with your cards is that there's a significant change happening in your career this year. We drew the April card, and that's when the eclipse is on your midheaven. I think there's a significant career change coming in April. We also have the Pig card, so beware of greed in matters. We got the Ring card, which is a marriage will take place, either romantic or business. So I feel like there is... It doesn't have to be marriage, but I would read this as a relationship. I think the person that I'm picking up for you, they've been stupid in the past. There's no way around that. They've been stupid. They've done stupid things. They were a turkey. But I feel like they've transformed. They might be born in January. They might be born in April. Or events may happen in January or happen in April. You might meet this person through your career. You might actually have a child with this person, or you might create a business with this person. And with the caterpillar and the moon, I feel like it's telling you, Barbara, that whatever situation you're in now, whatever your situation is, it's going to look very different by this time next year, I want to say. The person for you might be kind of stubborn. They might be kind of bossy also. But with family wishes come true, I don't know if you feel like family pressure to be in a certain point. And I do think from your astrology that maybe the person for you is a little bit different to what your family intended. But I think they're going to be very happy to see you happy. That's sort of something that I'm getting. There might also be a birth coming up in your family quite soon. Within the next 2 years or something. Yeah, we got the Love card. And flag, don't be tempted to lower your standards. There's a good reminder. Don't lower your standards. And we got the Fox as well. I think that the person for you is very shrewd in business. I keep getting this sense that maybe they weren't the best person at some point in their life and they've grown from that. I don't think it's because they're a bad person. But I think they've taken their... Do you know what it's like? It's like when someone has really powerful powers of flirtation and they can absolutely use it for evil. Or they can use it for good. I think this person's maybe done both. Like maybe at some point you done it in a way that wasn't... I think someone maybe in their past called them a pig. Like, you pig. And now they're kind of someone who's like more well-rounded. Handshake and ear. A meeting with a stranger could be important and good news. I do get the sense that you're going to meet this person serendipitously and you're going to like what you hear from them. And I do think they might come from a different place, or it might be that someone says, hey, I actually have someone I want to introduce you to. They could literally have Michael or Michaels in their name. But the more you see your value and trust your intuition, the easier it's going to be for you to connect with somebody else, is another thing that I'm seeing. And you might be wearing or wear rose quartz to attract love into your life or generate feelings of self-love. But that is what I have for you, Barbara. I hope you enjoyed that. Do let me know how you found the reading, and I hope that you have a wonderful year, and I'll talk to you soon.